Yo, 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 it's Cinderella Sew. What up? I'm going to show you how to hem your pants to any length you want. So you're going to want to try on your pants with a shoe that you would wear the pants with. If you wear heels to work, then you're going to want to put on a pair of heels. So now we're just taking the pants and folding them under until you get the desired length. So you just fold it all the way around and see what it looks like. So once you find the length you like, you're just going to take a pin like this and put one pin down and out through the fabric like that. So we have our pair of pants, and here's our pin showing us how long we want the pants to be. So this is where the bottom of the pants will face the ground. So you can take the pin out and just put it in the bottom of that fold. So now when you pull the fabric out, we know that's the bottom, that's going to be the bottom of the pant, and we're going to make our hem along here. So you want to give yourself a good size hem in case you ever want to make the pants longer. So I would say about an inch or 3 fingers from where the bottom of the pant is going to be, and we're just going to cut across the fabric. So we have our pin in place where the bottom of the pant is going to be, and now we're going to cut, so we're leaving at least 3 fingers of hem length. So once we know how much fabric we want to cut off, you can put another little pin in there halfway across. That will guide you. Now we're just going to go in with a good set of fabric scissors, and you're just going to cut straight across. This doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be sewing it up anyways, but if you wanted to make it perfect, you could use a measuring tape. Take that pin out. The part you've already cut, you can now fold across like that and use it as a guide as to where to cut on the next side of the pant legs. Just making sure it's nice and even all the way across. But again, this raw edge is going to get sewn up into a hem, so it doesn't need to be too perfect. Now we have our fabric cut and it's ready to sew. So we're always going to start sewing on a seam. So you're going to go to one of the side seams and fold the fabric up, making sure the seam lines up from the hem part to the inner part, just like that. That is the 3 finger width that we want, and that's what we're going to sew in place. We're going to take some thread, pull off about an arm's length of thread. If you cut it at an angle like this, it should be easier to put through your needle. And put the thread through the hole in the needle, pull it until the ends meet at the bottom. So you're sewing with 2 layers of thread, just like that. So now the ends meet. We have our threaded needle, and you can just smooth out the thread with your fingers. So we're going to that hem, making sure it's lined up, lining up the seam of this hem part with the seam of the pants. This is the seam on the inside of the pants, and we're going to put our needle through there and then come out through this hem fabric. Pull your thread through, but not all the way through. And then we're going to go back through those same holes through the seam, through the hem of the pants, making this loop of thread, and then putting our needle through that loop and pulling it shut. This is just making knots that will secure the thread in place to start our sewing. And again, go through that loop and pull it tight. So now we've secured our thread with 3 knots. We're going to do a couple more knots a little further down. The more knots, the better. You really can't go wrong securing it in place. Perfect. You would use thread that matches your fabric, but I'm using white thread so I can show you what I'm doing. What you're going to do is take a small piece of the fabric of your pants with your needle, and then you're going to come out in the fabric of the hem. And this is called a blind stitch, and it's a stitch you won't see on the other side. You might see a bit with my white thread, but there you can just see it's a tiny, tiny dot. So if you were using matching thread, you wouldn't see it at all. And you're just going to keep doing that all along the hem. So again, just taking a little pick of the fabric of the pants and then coming out through that hem and pulling it through. You can pull to get the right tension and then pull back to smooth it out, making sure it's not too tight and not puckering. And every now and then you can do a knot, and you'll do that by just doing another pick through the pant and coming out through the hem, making that loop of thread, and then putting your needle through the loop and pulling it into that knot. And that just secures the thread in place. So we're going to do this all around the pants. Just a little pick of fabric and then come out through the hem, pull it like that. Pick through the fabric, out through the hem, and every now and then just do a knot coming up through close to the same spot you already came through and out through the hem, making that loop of thread and pulling it closed like that. Make sure your hem is still the same width that you want, and you can even move this needle over and pin it in place a little further down. We're running a bit low on thread, so you want to make sure you have enough thread to do some knots before you have to cut it off. So I'm going to do like 3 knots now, a pick and out through the hem once, putting your needle through that loop and pulling it shut. And we're going to do that a couple more times so that we can cut off the thread and start again with more thread on our needle. One last knot through a pick of the pant, out through the hem, back through that loop of thread, and pull it closed into a knot. And now we can cut our thread off there, and we're going to rethread our needle. Pulling out some thread, cutting it off at an angle, thread through the hole in the needle until the ends meet at the bottom like this. So we're approaching a seam, and you want to make sure your seam's lined up. The seam of the pants is lined up with the seam of the hem. We're going to start again on a seam, so you can put your needle through this chunk of seam inside the pants and come out through the hem. So you'll go through that, out through this hem, pull your thread almost through, but not all the way through, and we'll do that a couple times. Making a loop of thread, putting our needle through the loop, pulling our needle through, and pulling it closed. Again, through the seam, through the hem, creating that loop of thread, putting our needle through, and pulling it closed like that. Just move down a bit and do a couple more. Securing the seams in place is a really good way to make sure it's nice and straight. So now all we have to do is sew along this next side of seam, and we're all done. So you can take that pin, pull the hem tight like that, making sure again it's the right width that you want, and you can use your pin to secure it in place. We'll go through a tick of the fabric, out through the hem, and pull it to the right tension and keep going. A little bit of the fabric, out through the hem. You want to pull it so it's tight but not too tight that it puckers like that. So you can pull it tight and then smooth it out. Now we'll just do a knot to secure it in place. So making this loop of thread, putting our needle through the loop, pulling it tight, and now it's secured the right tension. A little bit of the fabric, out through the hem. So now we're almost back to where we started. Do one more little stitch, out through the hem, and then we're going to do knots to secure it in place. So we'll go all the way back through the hem, and you want to get all the way back to where we started. We're back to the seam where we started. We're going to go through that seam and out through the pants, making about 3 knots to secure it in place. So to make those knots, we'll just make our loops through the seam, through the fabric, loop of thread, put your needle through, pull it closed. All we're going to do is 2 more. We're just going to do 1 more knot and we will be all done. So pull it tight like that. So now we're ready. We've done all of our knots back on the seam we started. You can cut off the thread like that. There you go. So even using the white thread, you can't see that. And now it's a nice secure hem on the inside and it's the exact length you wanted. Now move over to the other pant leg. Lay it out nice and smooth and then use the piece that you cut off your first pant leg and lay it right on top, making sure all the ends meet at the bottom like that. Now that the piece is on top, it's going to show you exactly where you should cut on the other pant leg. So you'll just go in with your fabric scissors and cut the second pant leg using that fabric as a guide of where to cut. So you'll go to one of the seams. We're making it 3 fingers wide. So you're going to fold it up, matching the seam of the hem to the seam of the pants on the inside. Make sure it's the right width of about 3 fingers and you're going to pin that in place. Now we'll just start sewing all the way around just like we did with the other pant leg, and then both pant legs will be done. Yeah! So when you're all done, you have custom tailored pants, the exact length that you wanted with a nice couture blind stitch on the inside. And it's very easy to adjust if you ever wanted to make your pants longer or shorter. These are really easy stitches to cut out if you need to. Thank you so much for watching Cinderella Sew, and I'll see you soon. Peace.